Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with yet another episode of Star Trek Con, episode 5 of 9, the hump episode, right? But it's a big one. It's some big developments.
I hadn't quite realized it's the hump episode. Okay, noted.
Yeah, so lots to get into. We can go ahead and dive on in. I'm Fathery,
This is Dave.
I'm Miss Taylor.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 351st installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are discussing Star Trek Con, Episode 5, Imagination's Limits, written by Kirsten Beyer and David Mack, story by Nicholas Meyer, directed by Fred Greenhalgh. And before we get into this big episode of the audio drama, I think it felt like the most happened in this half-hour-ish episode than any
Had
of the
to be
previous
the
ones.
most unexpected occurrence to date in a podcast that's had a surprising number of surprises.
Yeah, well, one thing that we knew was going to happen, but also combined with a
Right.
surprise. But before we get too far talking about that, I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to the wonderful people in the Tex-Trek Patreon. They keep our show going. They keep the Starship Texas flying. So thank you so very, very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dot, Geek Filter, Quarkspar, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A., Joel Vallis, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, Dave A. Gregory, Joe Saporito, Wanda Valentine, Ren, and our anonymous supporters. And just to remind everyone, we do have monthly watch parties with our patrons. Our next one is scheduled for Saturday, October 18th, and that's going to be in about a week at 3:30 p.m. Central Time, but we're going to be watching the Discovery episode, The Sound of Thunder. That's the one where they go to Saru's home planet, Kaminar, for the first time in Season 2, and we see his sister, and we get that first reveal of the Baiul as these creepy tar monsters. I think it would also be fun. We can also watch the short track, The Brightest Star, which shows Saru leaving. Like, we can watch him leave, and then we can watch when he comes back home. It's like going back to your hometown after being gone for a while. So, looking forward to watching that, and that's open to any and all of our patrons to attend. You can join the Tex-Trek Patreon as little as $2 a month, and that will get you into the monthly watch parties. And also, if you can afford to be more generous, we have some additional perks as well. So please check out the Tex-Trek Patreon. And also to remind people, if you're watching this live on Friday, it hasn't happened yet, but New York Comic Con is going on. And I'm thinking we'll get a trailer for Starfleet Academy. Probably going to have another trailer. So I don't 100% for sure know that, but I think we'll probably get like a trailer, and we'll get something from Strange New World Season 4. Like a clip, or maybe even like some type of teaser or something.
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if I haven't really planned any kind of like trailer breakdown or anything like that. But I don't know. We might do something. I don't know when would be a good time. I'm gonna be pretty busy this weekend. But maybe definitely it's like something big. So just join the Tex-Trek Discord server or follow the at Tex-Trek handle on social media platforms, and I will let it be known if we are doing something. Just I think the panels are sad. I feel so unprepared. I'm normally on top of this stuff, but I think the panels are Saturday tomorrow. So
Hey, Father, have we seen in the trailers for Starfleet Academy? Have we seen Tilly yet?
no, and apparently Mary Wiseman has commented on that lately and be like, "Well, I'm not actually going to be in that show as much as we originally thought I was going to be," or someone's commented on it. So
Let's get her back in there. Get her front and center.
I think I saw a rumor that she's only in one episode, so if that's
Well-
true, I'm gonna be extremely upset and sad.
maybe she was like the backup plan of like if we can't book someone big like Holly Hunter, then we'll use Mary Wiseman.
I mean, I can see it realistically, or the way they plot these things, but that would be a big shame. Maybe, but I don't know. It's hard to guess where Disco is going to land in the Grand Pantheon. Obviously, it was hit and miss for a lot of people while it was going. When's the reappraisal happening? When will it be determined that it is in fact actually the best Star Trek that ever came out? It's time to start going back.
Yeah, so I just looked up what Taylor was talking about, and yeah, Mary Wiseman did say that she's only in one episode.
All right. Well, I know it's not what we're here for tonight, but that to be continued discussion-wise.
Well, moving on then. I'll double check on the Comic-Con details in a moment, but before we get any further, let's just recap this episode of the Con audio drama Imagination's Limits by I'm going to read the official synopsis and then kind of expand on that with spoilers. But the synopsis reads, Khan and his people prepare for inescapable global calamity and learn they are no longer alone on this world. Are these mysterious new arrivals enemies or possible allies? And yeah, the Ceti Alpha VI explodes, throwing Ceti Alpha V's orbit out of whack. We know this will lead to devastation across the planet's surface. And there's also some alien neighbors that crash nearby on the planet. And Khan decides, oh, I have to go fight these people in battle because, of course, he's Khan. But then he's like, oh, they have like cool mental powers and they're like actually being friendly, and they're like, oh, look, you can go live in this underground cave with all this water and everything you need to survive. And I don't know how to respond to these people being compassionate and nice. So we have Khan having a bit of a internal conflict, a bit of kind of a traditional Star Trek kind of moral quandary type situation scenario where it's like, oh, how do you deal with this first contact situation, or like like these two different camps that are stranded on like the same desert island basically. How are they going to coexist? Are they going to work together, work against each other? But it's
Usually
all
usually the lead who's is some captain who's a little more altruistic. Khan was like, I can't believe I don't definitely have to kill them.
yeah. Yeah, it's all like lensed through the Khan version of what would be like traditional Star Trek stuff.
Yep.
But I'll go ahead and give like the first opening statement, and we can each take a turn saying our broad thoughts on the episode before we get in the episode breakdown. But having the alien visitors on the planet now and the debate over the correct way to interact with them, It did make this like the most kind of Star Trek feeling episode of the whole thing so far. It was fun to see non-Starfleet personnel handle, the standard Star Trek kind of trope, having to deal with first contact. This was something that back when they announced this as a miniseries way back in the day years ago, when it was like going to be a possible live action miniseries on Paramount Plus, I always wondered if it would like involve like some alien visitors coming to Ceti Alpha V. I was like, well, what would you do, for like a?
Did you really?
Yeah, I mean, like what else? Like it always seemed like something that, like, what would you do to like just have Khan and his augments, or are they just gonna be like hanging out on this planet with like the same small number of characters, and they'd just be like them and like the animals on the planet? Like
that's what I figured. That's why I was like, please don't make this.
I was thinking like at some
that was
point,
my own imagination's limit.
And see, the kind of the thing that like bothered me about is like I think it would be really lame if like some like space marauders, like pirates or something, like they come to Ceti Alpha V and they're gonna try to like take over Khan's little colony, and he has, because I was like, okay, they would probably want to have like some like bad guys or something for him, some enemy for him to have to deal with at some point. It can't just be Khan versus the planet. It can just be like Khan versus the great outdoors.
That's a trope in literature and stories. You can have man versus nature.
But I did always wonder, if they did that, would it be something that would make me roll my eyes, or would it be something that like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool that happened in that time between Space Seed and the Wrath of Khan. So. But I think that was a good idea to save it until, kind of like halfway through this thing. That's when you need to shake things up a little bit, keep it from getting too boring. But I also liked having more Sulu, and just like that opening scene on the Excelsior. That also was just, oh, this is cool. I'm just doing like standard Star Trek stuff, but it's Captain Sulu on the Excelsior. And even just one scene of that, it was, as someone who, like I said a couple weeks ago, like I always wanted that Star Trek Excelsior TV show starring George Takei. It is kind of fun to get a version of that here. So, and the other thing I want to point out is Ivan. I thought had some standout moments in this audio drama. He got some really fun lines, I guess, because he was in a lot of combat situation stuff, which is a good environment for the Russian brute character, but.
Mm-hmm. He's like, finally, something I can understand.
So yeah, I thought he had like some good dialogue, some fun lines in the battle scene and stuff. But Dave, what about you? What was your general takeaway on this episode?
I'm gonna, before I say anything, I'm gonna quick address something Jill was asking in the comments. She was wondering why there was a hurry to kill these aliens. And I don't think they quite articulate it per se. Ivan's very much, hey, strike first. But I do think like when another planet's about to come crashing down on them, they're like, we don't need two problems. And Khan is going to assume aggression. It does seem like that is one of his imagination's limits. So I think he was like, man, if we're going to fight them, we better do it now. Well, we're not fighting on two fronts or facing problems on two fronts. But yeah, we'll talk more about that as we get into it. This episode, it addressed something that I wasn't quite, I never quite know what they're going to pull from the lore of Wrath of Khan or Space Seed. There are really only two sources for this. And they went at something, they've been touching on, the mysteries involving and maybe kind of inconsistencies about Ceti Alpha V and VI. But here they got into something. Oh, by the way, sorry if you hear a dog barking. I'm home alone and the dogs are a little riled in the other rooms. Oh my gosh. Clearly somebody is walking by and making them go crazy. Anyway, hopefully they'll chill out in a few minutes. Otherwise, I'll have to hand this off to Taylor until they do. The thing that they addressed this time that I was really into is that sort of dichotomy around Khan about this guy who's so smart, so physically capable. Why does he keep losing? Why do his patterns indicate, as Spock once said, two-dimensional thinking? Mm-hmm. And I do want to point out, like, there have been successes for Khan. Off screen in his past, he controlled a quarter of the Earth. Pretty big success. He basically beat Kirk in Space Seed until MacGyver's had her change of heart. He took over the Reliant, a ship he didn't have any knowledge of, really, and nearly destroyed the flagship of Starfleet. So it's not like he hasn't had some wins, but he does lose at times. He was driven from Earth. Kirk has beaten him, and he's had some losses on this planet. And so this episode zeroes in on what is the fatal flaw behind that. MacGyver's calls it out, his lack of imagination. He can't see beyond sort of short-term solutions, and he's got this will and intelligence that can get a lot done in that short term, but he's not great at the bigger picture. He can't. He's got a warrior ethos, I think, so that his inclination is to conquer rather than build a coalition. He can build. We've seen him do that, but that was with his own people, his existing people. When it steps outside of his kind of sphere of knowledge, he panics. At the end of this episode, he says he's afraid. For the first time. That was interesting. So I really like that about this episode. It's the biggest surprise yet we got in the episode was the aliens crash landing on Ceti Alpha V. I was shocked, to be honest. I had not thought about it like Fathery. I'm sort of in the place where I've liked so much of it, including this episode, that I'm kind of terrified that they're going to drop the ball or something. But the writers have earned a lot of trust from me, so I feel like it's not a bad problem to have. I'm like, I like it so much, I just don't want them to screw up now. Yeah, good episode. Lots of stuff to talk about.
Cool. Well, Taylor, what about you? Give us your opening statement before we go into our episode breakdown.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning on Dave's side, where I was surprised to see aliens in this episode. Was excited to... I like the way... Sorry, the cat is jumping all over the table right now. Sorry, everything is shaking.
Animal attacks. That's what we're experiencing.
So sorry. But I really love the way that the story was narrated, and the sound design and all of the alien scenes was so good. I really felt like it was intense, and something like, Khan had never experienced like I'm blanking on the word, like a telepathy person before.
Telepath.
Yeah, telepath before. But yeah, I think that was handled really well and really interesting. I think the writers know Khan so well and understand like his driving forces, and so it's really cool to throw him into these situations and see how he reacts. I feel like they really understand his reactions. Like him being like, I'm gonna kill them. I was like, yeah, of course he is, because he's a little bit intimidated by this planet already that he feels like he doesn't have control of. This neighbor planet just blew up, and he's I agree with you, Dave, where he's just I can't have another problem, and
I guess on that level I sort of feel you, Khan.
Yeah, he's just I have to eliminate one, and this is the only one I can control, but it's also the only thing he's comfortable with, and they kind of talk about that, Marla and Khan talk about that. So I think it's a really good exploration of his limitations, using what he knows and not willing to grow and expand. And I love Marla constantly challenging him and forcing him to, maybe try different approaches. He's not really receptive at first, but I think he kind of comes around as he figures out she's right. I would love to just hear Khan say, Marla, you're right, at least 10 times in one episode. So but I also really loved the Lear stuff with Sulu. I really love when we get more of her, because there's still that lingering mystery of who she is, and there's so much that she discusses with Sulu that makes me feel even still there's something special or something that ties her directly to this, and I just still want to know more. But I'm glad we got to explore more of Dr. Lear in this episode and got to hear Sulu some more, because I think the last couple ones we haven't heard as much from them. But
she reminds me a little bit of Deep Space Nine type exchanges where people pushed back against accepted Starfleet doctrine. and we're like, is that really how you're doing this? You know, and yeah, it's kind of nice to see. Well, at the same time, Sulu is this voice, and Tuvok, they're kind of there to advocate for Starfleet and say, whoa, you know, you're mischaracterizing us, and you can tell that, you know, they're not, you know, getting like punked out, I guess. But yeah, they're good conversations. I really like it. That was like a long convo she had with Sulu too.
Yeah.
They kept the camera on him if it was in film.
Yeah, and you connecting it to Deep Space Nine is a good point, because that's when you started seeing in Star Trek a consistent depiction of alternative views other than Starfleet in Star Trek. That was like Deep Space Nine's arguably their biggest contribution to the franchise, was showing that, like, oh yeah, Star Trek can also like examine things by having these other perspectives in addition to this kind of traditional, you know, that Roddenberry humanitarian, that future, that Starfleet ethos that he wanted, and that kind of you can kind of learn more about, if that is what you, if those are the ideas you want to tell stories about, you can kind of explore more of that by having something to compare it to. So it was an advantage it was advantageous of the franchise to start doing that from like Deep Space Nine onward. You know, like most shows have some non-Starfleet characters along for the ride also. It might just be Neelix in Seven of Nine or Kes in Voyager, but
yeah,
they always have like that kind of the, you know, your Quark or Odo or Kira, that non-Starfleet person that's going to tag along also. Book on Discovery, where like here in Star Trek Con, it's, you know, Lear on the Excelsior with Sulu and Tuvok.
And it's so
I can't believe Marla's daughter. No, I'm just more speculation.
But it's also fun because the rest of the story is all non-Starfleet with one Starfleet person. So you get like the reverse of that so much with Khan. So it's cool to kind of get the normal fish out of water approach that we would see, like with Dr. Lear and Sulu, versus like Marla being the only Starfleet person with Khan and their whole group. So
yeah, like Fathery was noting earlier, it is kind of like an inverse episode or of like, you know, like Next Generation or, you know, TOS or whatever, where, oh, you know, there's aliens on the planet. They, you know, may be friends or foes. We've got to like make this first contact and puzzle things out with them. It's just that they are definitely not following Starfleet doctrine. But I love that Marla was like, man, she's calling them out. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it. But she's like, do you guys even know anything about, you know, spacefaring races? You guys, you know, don't know shit.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into our episode breakdown, starting with that opening scene between Lear and Sulu. But the episode begins with Lear making log entries, you know, talking about, you know, as I study all of these records, it's starting to look like I was right, that Khan was much more than a mad tyrant, and that's almost like the version of history that she's trying to rewrite is interrupted when her log entry is interrupted by someone in some Excelsior personnel informing her that she's being summoned to Captain Sulu's quarters. And then I really liked this when we go to the captain's quarters. He's got classical music playing. It kind of made me think of like Shaw in Star Trek Picard season 3. But it was a very kind of like, I don't know, standard Starfleet captain type of thing to be listening to classical music in your quarter. You know, very like Janeway or Picard thing to do.
Yeah, it's a little pretentious.
I like to listen to rain on, you know, micrometeors creating rain sounds on the whole.
Yeah.
Well, I listen to Sebastian Bach.
He's like, I'm a man of culture. This is what I do in my free time.
But Sulu hands over Spock's scans of Ceti Alpha VI that they took back during Space Scene. I guess the the classified stuff from Kirk's personal logs that Lear was asking about. At least some of it. It might. I don't know if anything was redacted. I don't know if he gave her the whole enchilada or not. But she's like, oh, so the Enterprise did scan Ceti Alpha VI, and it did show a little instability, but nothing to make anyone think it was about to blow up in a few months. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they bring up the question. I'm trying to figure out how they do this without, making Kirk look like a schmuck or his crew look incompetent. And then Sulu makes a point that, basically it's the most, one of the most competent Starfleet officers of all time. Spock took the readings and he's pretty unimpeachable.
Yeah, his record as a Starfleet officer is unimpeachable.
Yeah.
He says. Did he know about the time that Spock stole the Enterprise and then went and got drunk? He got drunk with a bunch of Klingons. Does Sulu know about that?
Somebody could edit that. He's like, he's unimpeachable. And then, smash cut to Spock's goofiest moments from Strange New Worlds. Please make that video.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dave. Though. Please
no,
continue.
I don't know that I had any further point. I liked this conversation a lot. And I like that, okay, whatever is going to have happened, I think it is neither, oh, we forgot to scan it, or Kirk, I'm very certain that they're not going to be like, Kirk wanted them to suffer. I know they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But, Lear is entertaining it. She's a little bit in the place where MacGyver's once was. She has fallen under his spell a little bit. And as, if Lear is his daughter, then, as people are, Jill was noting, I think in the comments, that there's similar personality traits in them. That would make sense. That makes sense. She's inclined towards a sympathetic view of her father. You would like that to happen, and I think some interesting drama will come about if she is forced to come face to face with the fact that was almost there. He almost could be that person. In the previous episode, I think he was that person. That's why she said, "Oh, much more than we thought." But I think we're going to find it in this episode, starting in this episode and onward, that he's definitely not that person. He's not not a true leader in the way Kirk Picard somebody was.
Right. I did think it was interesting that Lear brought up the issue with augment.
Prejudice.
Thank you, prejudice.
Yeah.
The augment prejudice, and she was very passionate about it. And I feel like a lot of the people of this time seem like Sulu, right, are saying like, well, that's how it has to be because that was how bad it was and blah, blah, blah. And she's like very advocative, right, and very, well, this needs to be more equal. And I feel like that is just another flag for me that she's probably half augment.
She's a closeted augment.
Right.
I hadn't quite thought of that obvious, connection. But that makes some sense.
But if she is a descendant of Khan, then
I
mean, that would explain her augment. But yeah, it made me think of like La'an in Strange New Worlds, or Julian Bashir in Deep Space Nine, but characters that are like outed as being genetically altered or descendants of people who are
right.
And so
in general, it has always slightly bothered me that Starfleet does have essentially this sort of prejudice towards them and can't at least have a more nuanced discussions about it. Like, we normally wouldn't want to step on these kind of individual rights. We wouldn't make these judgments about somebody who's been augmented or whatever. It's painful for us to do, but it's the terror, the shadow of those wars, the eugenics wars, loom so large. So many were lost. We have to do this. We have to do our due diligence. Nobody's quite put it that way. Usually they're kind of hardliners about it. They're like, oh, obviously we gotta rein them in. And I think there's somebody like Sulu, perhaps before the end of this series, could have a nuanced discussion about both the dangers and the problem of the level of prejudice that they're throwing around.
Yeah.
And they in addition to talking about the how augment citizens are treated under Federation law, they also have that debate, I guess, on what makes a monster a monster.
Yeah.
Sulu says, well, monsters come from pain that is not processed, and then pain that is passed on, and that's what leads to monsters. And Lear saying that, well, in those situations, and then when people are suffering like that, is it not our responsibility to intervene and help them? And maybe we have an obligation to prevent people from becoming monsters.
Great exchange. I loved it. Because it had that depth that I always want Trek to hit, where she's like, yeah, okay, so he something's broken inside him. Well, don't we have an obligation to try and help that? And then of course he's like, Kirk gave him the tools. He had his shot, and he either was unwilling to or unable to. And what does he say? He's like, I sleep just fine at night, knowing that Khan is gone from this fucking universe.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people died in the wrath of Khan, and it was just like to be fair to Sulu's point, Kirk did give him a shot, and then he went and stole a ship and stole a weapon of mass destruction, and who knows what he would have gotten up to if he hadn't have blown up, but. It's harsh, but I can certainly see why Sulu would have this opinion, this stance.
Mm-hmm. Did Khan kill everybody on Regular One? Just about everybody,
except for the guy who went with Carol and David into the middle of the planet, but then he gets killed later. So I guess eventually. They all die, except for, shortly after that, except for Carol is the only one who lives.
Oh, did he? What happened to the Reliance crew? They were marooned on Ceti Alpha V.
Right, but the Enterprise picks them up on its way back to...
Okay.
When the Enterprise is rolling back to space dock at the beginning of Star Trek 3, and it's shortly after the funeral with Scotty playing the bagpipes, but I guess, Kirk had been, his grief forced them to binge eat because Shatner is a little chubbier, and Uhura went and got Jerry curls. Her hair is a little different, but it's picks up right after Wrath of Khan. Is at that point they had gone to Ceti Alpha V, got the Reliant survivors, and are bringing them back with them.
Fathery, everybody deals with grief in a different way. Some people deal with it with Jerry curls. Some people deal with it with Ceti Cheetos or whatever it was he had.
Yeah, some people deal with it by playing the bagpipes. So.
But yeah, no, I thought this was a really good conversation, and when an episode starts with that strong, it's that had me on board for the kind of the wilder turns to come.
And that criticizing of Starfleet, of Lear kind of poking at it, when Sulu is like, oh, Kirk just never had time to go follow up with Khan and check in on you. It's a big universe. Us Starfleet captains have a lot of important stuff to do, and then I like Lear kind of poking at Star Trek itself. Okay, you want to explore this big universe. You're always boldly going forward. That maybe means you're not spending enough time looking back. So, and that is something that a historian.
When she said that,
yeah, but that's the historian's perspective. It's a historian talking to the explorer. So
yeah.
Anything else on Lear and Sulu before we move on to the Ceti Alpha V stuff?
Go ahead.
Well,
on Ceti Alpha V.
Father, do you mind if I interrupt for 1 second? Sorry, I was muted to block dogs. I want to just throw out one random comment before I forget it, because something reminded me of something in the previous episode. Did we ever mention that they echoed a line from Star Trek 3? Khan says to Ivan, he's like, "What have I done?" And Ivan says, "What you have always done." And then he doesn't say, turn death into a fighting chance to live, but he says something else. He's like, "What you've always done, rallied the people," or But it was definitely an echo, I thought, of Star Trek 3. I don't know if it was very conscious or if it just happened that way, but...
Oh, I didn't even notice that, which I should have. That's my favorite Star Trek movie. So.
It's an amazing scene. Yeah, no, it popped for me. I think it just showed that there are at least echoes of somebody like Kirk in Khan. Definitely not the full thing, but some echoes of him. And his people see him the way people see Kirk, too.
Well, so
Didn't mean to interrupt, but carry on.
so after the Lear Sulu opening, we flash back to Ceti Alpha V. It sounds like Marla is trying to get Khan to start recording some, I don't know, historical logs. She's trying to just get him to open up when they kind of have this cutesy convo where she's like, oh, just dip your toes in. And he's saying like, oh, there's more fun ways to use my toes. Or I guess I was kind of confused the first time I heard it, but I guess he's like playing footsie with her under the table, or like I don't know,
Yeah.
but they're.
I was
like,
mildly
flirting with
confused
her.
as well.
They have like this like kind of giggly cutesy moment, and then the Apollo interrupts and is like, oh, Ceti Alpha VI just blew up.
Yeah, it just straight happened.
Yeah, I like that they were like flirting and having a cute little moment. And then when Paolo is like, Khan, come here now. And he's like, why? Like, I love that he was like, I don't want to leave this fun moment that I'm having with Marla. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and he also doesn't like to be bossed around. Like, obviously he was already feeling like a contrarian as soon as he was like, Khan, come here. And he's like, why? Like, why would I follow your orders?
Paolo
Like,
works up some cojones a few times in this episode.
Yeah.
I kind of started to respect him more than I expected to. That was a neat little bit of growth.
oh, yeah.
Especially for the scene later on. But yeah, he's, it was interesting because this is one of those cases where I feel like there's sort of the novelist. Feels like a little David Mack sort of a novelist's approach to this, where the planet explodes and it's not just like the debris is raining down instantly. They're like, in a few months it's going to start hitting us, but that nothing is going to come down right away. Except something does.
Except for the spaceship.
It's just not. It's not part of the planet. It's a new and unexpected thing.
Which there are a lot of coincidences going on here. If it is that Ceti Alpha VI just happened to blow up on its own 6 months after they were marooned on Ceti Alpha V, like I mean, that's fine. That's kind of what Wrath of Khan has always suggested had happened. I don't know if we're gonna find out like a specific cause, but that is
I
kind of
think
like
we will. Marla said like, or maybe Lear like a billions to one chance that it would be right then. So they would not throw out odds that bad unless they, I think, had it's Chekhov's gun. It's Chekhov's exploding planet. Chekhov, the writer, not the the Russian.
Anton, not Pavel.
Yes, thank you. But anyway, so I do think we're going to get an explanation for it. I think those aliens, they had so much power that I don't see quite why they would lie. But my understanding is that they said that their ship was already damaged. They came into the system to make repairs. A little odd.
Yeah.
Is Ceti Alpha system a good place for making repairs?
I had a list of coincidences I was about to run through, but like starting if there is. If we don't get an explanation of why the planet exploded, which like according to the Enterprise's scans, like there is nothing to indicate it was going to blow up. So that kind of suggests both like, well, they don't have anything they're revealing just yet, but maybe they're saving like a big reveal for later. And I think it would be kind of poetic if it does end up being like something that Khan did, like if he kind of is the cause of his own misery. But it is kind of a hell of a coincidence also that this ship just happened to be like in the system, like you were saying, Dave, at the time of this planetary explosion. And also that they land on the same part of Ceti Alpha V that Khan and his people are. You'd think it's like a big planet. But I don't know how many of these are just, kind of conveniences for the writers, or how many of these things actually might have some reason behind them that we just don't know about yet. But yeah, just the ship crashing near them, it does make me think like, okay, like a lot of coincidences seem to be occurring. So
yeah, but if like those aliens, if they had been, in fact, there's something they were extracting from Ceti Alpha VI that is good for them. I mean, why lie? They've got overpower them, so there's just I don't see the immediate reason for it, and I don't think they would. they're going to get into too deep a nested explanation for it.
I mean, it is possible that they just happen to be passing by and Ceti Alpha VI exploded for no reason that we're ever going to learn about, and then they just happen to crash 15 kilometers away from Khan's camp. But
I feel like 95% sure that we will get an answer to it. Because they've made a point about the odds on it so often, multiple times in this. I'm going to go ahead and mark my prediction that we will absolutely get an explanation within the next few episodes, or before the end anyway.
It's actually Mirror Universe Kirk came in just to like fuck with everyone, and Tom specifically to be like,
that'd be a pretty good scam there.
There is always that idea of Mirror Universe Kirk showing up in the Prime Universe if the Agony booth actually, or not the Agony booth, the Tantalus field actually was sending people from the Mirror Universe to the Prime Universe.
That's an interesting notion.
And that it would get used on Kirk, and that was like a way to get like Shatner to show back up in Trek after Prime Kirk died in Generations, but no one ever did that. They can still do it. Someone can still do it. Like Shatner's still around, so.
It's kind of an interesting notion that that the Ceti Alpha could have been like almost like essentially it's like, oh, what a fun lab to play with. Let's see what kind of revenge I can get somebody on the trail of in this very nice universe. I don't think they're probably going to do that, but yeah, I can see a Mirror Universe person actually wanting to do that.
I'm going to compare something in here to Star Trek Into Darkness and mean it as like a compliment, but like a good thing. But I thought like when Khan was like, oh, that impact site was 15 kilometers away. Like, that's kind of like how they wrote like Benedict Cumberbatch Khan. Like he had they really like had like a good handle of his superhuman abilities, or like, showing off his like augment like he could like tell when like the Enterprise was like traveling at warp and when it wasn't. Right. And he had like that heightened awareness, that heightened perception. I kind of like seeing them do some stuff with that here, but
yeah, sometimes the simpler thing is just like, well, he's just really strong and he's a good tactician. So yeah, it's kind of cool when they sort of give him some other augment coolness.
And they go scout out the crash site, and Marla goes along with Khan and Ivan and Ursula because she's the only one who's ever like dealt with any aliens or anything. So it's when Khan's like, "Oh, you shouldn't come. I don't want like my pregnant wife to get in danger." But then she's like, like none of you've ever made first contact with aliens before. I have some Starfleet Academy training under my belt, and I like when he tells her like, okay, bring your scanner and your phaser.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he still wants control. He still wants to be the one that's commanding. Like, even though he didn't get what he wanted, and then he like comes around, he still has to act like, oh, I have to give her a command. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think he also
those anyway.
But yeah, but it's more of like, oh yeah, he wants her to do like the Starfleet scanning thing, but he also wants the
Starfleet killing thing.
The Starfleet weapon as well.
He's like, protect us. Yeah, I loved having Marla do this and go with them.
I was going to say, it's sort of you were worried that she might get left behind as the sacred, the sacred pregnant woman, and she's like, and they don't even make a big thing of it. She's just like, nah, I'm coming.
This feels like a daily conversation that they have, and like he's getting worn down more and more each day. But I love having Marla at the crash site, and she notices so many things immediately about them. And she brings up things that like Khan and his crew like don't see, because like we've already established they haven't met aliens before. And she's like, hey, notice they're not speaking? That could mean they're telepathic. Oh, like their skin is pearly and they have like interesting hair. Like maybe the atmosphere isn't as compatible for them. Like we don't know if that's true yet, but she makes really good observations like immediately. And they kind of, I still feel like they don't really take her, I don't want to say don't take her seriously, but they kind of brush her off a little bit. They're like, okay, just because we don't hear anyone screaming and talking doesn't mean that they're telepaths, And
you know what? I think that Khan's sort of lack of imagination has rubbed off on them a bit. You know, that is, and also the lives that they were forced into early on. It's not like it's all their fault. But Khan is so central to their lives, it makes sense that his opinions would rub off. And so, like, there's not a one of them who's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." There's life out there. You know, none of them have even one moment of awe or wonder about it. They're like, you know, where do we set up our tactical positions? Maybe some of the younger ones would have been there, but they weren't on the scout mission.
But I think this also goes back to that quote, and I'm going to butcher it every time because it is hard for me to remember. It's that Sherlock quote where it's like, whatever is like,
once you've eliminated the possible, whatever left, however unlikely, must be the truth. Something like that. Right.
Like, I feel like Marla is so there all the time. Like, she's already made all the eliminations and figured out the truth. You know what I mean? And everyone else is just, like, ready for a fight. So I think it's really interesting to get, like, both perspectives from them. You know?
Yeah, it is. There are multiple smart characters in this. Even the people who are, it was interesting to watch a little bit of the kind of the inner politicking, like, oh my gosh, who's she's the doctor of
Ursula.
Ursula. She found herself siding with Ivan. You know, she defaulted to a more protective thing and a more aggressive stance, even though she'd had her conflicts with Ivan previously.
Did y'all know that?
A lot of like neat ideas like that.
Did y'all notice that Khan is already blaming Kirk for stranding them on a dying world? Like, I think the first time he ever like starts blaming Khan for their misfortune is
Kirk for their misfortune.
Yeah, I think the first time he ever starts blaming Kirk for their misfortune was here, like after they see the aliens and they're talking about this is all Khan is saying this is all Kirk's fault. So I'm sure that's something that we're going to get more and more of in each episode, probably as this goes on. Until the ninth episode,
it's gonna get bad.
That's all
he can't. Yeah, none of the blame can come back on him. Like he's planting those seeds not only for like himself but for his people. Like he doesn't want them to blame him and overthrow him. So he's like, gotta find a scapegoat.
He did blame himself for like their, you know, Richter. I guess it was Richter. I think for his death and stuff. Initially, he has thrown some blame on himself, but I think the part of him that's all survival instinct is like, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to push forward without a goal, a revenge, something, you know, and it cannot be internal self-hatred. It's got to be something that can drive me.
He definitely has like the blame himself, but I don't think he like publicly blames himself.
Right. Yeah, I was about to bring that up. It's like he could only like admit he's at fault like in front of someone who he's about to like snap their neck or something.
Right.
Or like to like himself in private. Like it would never be something
that's true.
He would display in public.
That's like finding out Superman's identity. If you find it out, you're probably going to get mind wiped or killed.
I don't know about that, but so they scout out the aliens and they see that there's some dead but some survived, and Paulo and Joachim have a conversation where Joachim's kind of like, you know, excited and like, oh my god, this is like crazy news, Paulo. Like it sounds like Khan is wanting us to like go to war against these aliens, and Paulo is so like not interested. He's like, oh you fool, none of this matters. This planet is doomed. Like we don't have to kill these aliens. This whole planet is about to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a cool line where he's basically saying, you know, these things that are going to strike us are inevitable. He's like, and he says, we're talking about the laws of physics. Even he can't bend those to his will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was cool. And I like Paulo being the science nerd that they've kind of made out that he is. I guess like a lot of these characters are, but it's like
seems like a bit of a doofus in previous episodes who just had a knack for stuff like this. But here you kind of see like when his moment comes up, he kind of is like, hey, I'm going to speak up.
But with as much respect as all these people have for their beloved and cherished leader Khan. Like this kid still he still respects the laws of physics more. He's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
even Khan can't change the laws of physics. So Scotty knows a few things about that too. But yeah, let's talk about the war plans before the battle. They have this big meeting to discuss how to deal with the aliens, and like Ivan is really hawkish, of course. So he's immediately like laying out the tactics. It's like, okay, we have enough automatic weapons for 3-man squads, and I guess there is like a little bit of pushback initially from Marla, but it doesn't seem to get very far with anyone. There,
Yeah, and Mado piped up with an interesting tactical thing. She's like, if we go out there, they know our strength of arms and our numbers pretty well. Like when we stay within I guess they must be solidly walled in at this point. Have some decent walls up around the city. She's like, if we don't leave, then they don't know how many, what our resources are, how many people.
Yeah. Good thing those Ceti eels were around to give them that.
That's right. I don't think they're going to probably
Citadel
look at it that
wall.
way. They're like, oh, thank God the eels made us put walls up.
I liked the conversation between Joachim and Erica. Right before battle, like these two young people. It's kind of like the young soldier going off to war, and Erica's talking about like, oh, I was meant for botany, not war, and Joachim saying like, yeah, this is kind of all pointless. Paulo says the planet is doomed, but they have like that little innocent kiss between the two of them, like. Which is like you see that in like a lot of like war stories, and I guess it's a real life thing, but it's like, yeah, like in case you die, like, yeah, let's make use of this time while we can.
But she's also like, I mean, they don't like hop in the sack, because she says something.
No.
Doesn't she say something like something to look forward to afterward?
Yeah.
Like this is the start, not the end.
Yeah. I think it was more like a hope thing. Like it was like, oh, I don't think it was like what you're saying, Stephen, where it's like, oh, like final kiss before we both die. It felt more like, here's something to live for.
Well, it works as both.
I think that's true. That's true. But yeah, that's a kiss is a pretty good motivation there. That is something that people will hold on to.
And Dave, you were mentioning Paulo speaking up to Khan, but yeah, Paulo goes to Khan and tells him there's 19 pieces of Ceti Alpha VI coming towards Ceti Alpha V that are going to do some serious damage. 2 of them are as big as Iran.
Iran, yeah,
but
that was very specific, and I'm like, man, that sounds pretty awful.
Yeah, whenever they talk about Earth stuff, it's always something in the Middle East, or for the most part, not always.
Yeah, I think they also had like a little bit of like maybe Eastern Europe or maybe Asia, but like broadly, yeah, it's mostly been Middle East.
Kuwait, Baghdad.
Yep.
And
I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, it seems like that was Khan's sphere.
Yeah. He ruled over Asia and the Middle East. It sounded like so. But
he mentioned something in there. He said that crops are going to die, temperatures are going to drop, which I guess means kind of effectively a nuclear winter type situation. And it occurs to me, I'm like, I never knew quite whether Ceti Alpha, like I didn't look closely enough at the screens to see what temperatures they were showing if they did. But I think it looks like it could be hot, but I guess it's probably cold as hell.
Yeah, I kind of like that more, that it's cold. But I mean, that would make sense.
It makes sense.
You have all the dust in the sky and the air, and the sunlight doesn't get in and warm the planet like it's supposed to. And, so it would explain why all the life on the surface would die off. For sure.
And Paolo does say like he's like a ship like that is going to have the kind of scanning technology, somewhere in its scattered pieces to help us find the caves and water sources we need. And he's like, that should be the goal.
You know what? That's what they say in like office work culture that I think is largely like pretty toxic and is just there to encourage people to be good little worker drones and make the company more money and not complain too much. But that is something that they kind of like teach people, is like, if you're going to go bring up a problem to the boss, also bring up a solution along with it. And that's what Paulo does here. He's like, Khan, this entire planet is going to become a lifeless, barren rock on the surface. But the solution is that we go underground. We find some water in a cavern underground somewhere. And this alien ship would have the technology to scan this planet and would be able to find us. So, but I like that Paulo's idea is like, oh, we actually shouldn't kill these aliens. We should team up with them because their ship could help us out. And then Khan is like, wait a minute. What if we kill them anyways, but leave a few alive so we can get this information from them?
I love that this clarified that sort of point about that thinking two-dimensionally about Khan. I really like that, and I love how kind of Marla's basically, she's disappointed in him, and she tells the story of Zephram Cochrane and how kind of like choosing to take a weapon of war and take a shot at peace with it, even if your intentions aren't pure, could usher in something great. And it's clear she's like, wow, you could never do that. Yeah, she doesn't quite say it in so many words, but that's what she's saying.
But yeah, it's like it's beyond the limits of his imagination, is what she says, and names the episode there. But it's also that that is supposed to be the point in human history in Star Trek when mankind starts to become like these better Roddenberry idea of what the future humanity can be like type of humans. According to Star Trek, that things get so terrible in the 21st century, and World War III like wrecks the planet, and then in the 2060s we make first contact with the Vulcans, and just like the idea that like, oh, there's life on other worlds, and we're not so unique, and there's all these possibilities out in the universe, out in the stars. It made everyone on Earth collectively decide to start being better people and grow and evolve as a species and join this interstellar community of all these different alien races with infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And Khan and his people skipped all that. They were asleep on the Botany Bay, right? So they weren't part of this, kind of like this future renaissance that was going to happen to all of human culture, and they missed it. But yeah, and I like them bringing up that story from that subplot from First Contact, from Star Trek First Contact, about Zephram Cochrane is worshipped as like this hero, but he was actually just a guy trying to get rich, But
I think she initially calls him like a madman too, right? He's like, he was this madman.
But and you see the way that James Cromwell plays it, that great performance in the movie. But when he makes first contact, like the physical contact, like shaking hands with the Vulcan, when Picard is like, yeah, like they're here to see you. They want to see the human who flew a warp ship, and like you see Zephram Cochrane's eyes like change, and he's like, wait a minute, this is like an important key moment, a canon event, as they would say in the Spider-Verse movies. But it's like it's like he kind of stepped up. Yeah, like in his perception of like life in the universe and everything, like it all changed. It was, a beautiful idea. I'm sad now that I think about like, oh, we make first contact with aliens, and like we wouldn't even be able to convince half of the planet that was real. Like people would call it a hoax. They'd be like, that Vulcan's not from another planet. It's all fake. It's all a hoax. So
in the movie Contact, there's a great line where they're considering whether to contact the aliens that send them, and they're like, we don't even know what kind of gods they worship, if they worship God at all, and they're like, well, maybe they're like, maybe we should just call this off, and it's scary thoughts. But they went through scary times in Trek's era too, so we can presume that there were probably people doing the same thing, even within Trek history. So you got to stay the course.
Well, let's talk about. Well, did you have something else?
They're kind of, they're sort of, don't they do a rally of sorts to kind of, and in there, and it leads to that sort of almost quoting the yours is the superior intellect that Joachim will do in the movies. But Khan he's like, ours is the superior strength, ours is the superior intellect, ours is the victory to come. And
it's very fashy and eugenicsy, though. It's like
Uh-huh.
we're superior, we're the master race, we're perfect.
Yeah.
Like
They
lay
don't
waste to
even-
our enemies.
they don't know anything about these aliens. He's just like, I'm going to get them pumped to kill.
Yeah, but I thought it was appropriately fashy and eugenicsy. It's like, if you're paying attention, you're like, oh wait, this actually is not cool. All these people like getting hyped for this and like oh yeah, hell yeah, that's what I'm about. We're the superior. Let's go kill these people. And they're like chanting of Khan, something that that you brought up previously, Dave. But it's like, yeah, like they're definitely what do you call that? They're
Is it their reference for him, or I will say, like, he can take any sort of meeting of his crew, it seems like, and turn it into a pep rally for him. So
Yeah.
there is often a sort of an ego driven part of whatever he's doing. Even if he's getting them hyped up, it's in service. It's kind of in service to his ego.
Yeah, demagogue is the word I was trying to think of.
Yeah. I this is one of the many things I liked about the episode was that it was, without really taking away anything they've shown us before, they are showing Khan's weakness. And even in the last episode, I think, which I said was like Khan's finest moment, it was fun to recognize that when he rallied the people and he talked about how they won't be forgotten, that was still a propaganda speech too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So their assault on the aliens doesn't really last very long. Before they even, I guess, open fire, when they're just like encircling them, getting ready to fire. By the way, that was cool when like Ivan could count like, oh, there's exactly 396 of them. That was more like augment showiness. But the psychic attack from the aliens when I was thinking about this when I re-listened to it the second time, like, maybe the aliens are like bending the weapons with some telekinesis abilities, or maybe they're projecting in their minds like the idea that their weapons are all being bent up. It's like a Talos,
like the Talosians.
yeah, type of thing. So, but either way, it's like, oh yeah, this battle does not last long at all.
Yeah, Marlo was kind of exactly right. Their weapons didn't mean shit. What do they call them? I wish I had an obvious spelling for this. I don't know if it's in any format, but Elborian.
Yeah,
I was kind of laughing at that because I was like Andorian. Like there's so many
Elarians.
Yeah.
like even Boreans, and I don't know. When they said
I thought
out
it
loud,
might
though,
be
I
a
was
race.
like,
I thought it might be a race I just kind of wasn't super familiar with.
No,
but
something
it
they
seems
created for
seems
this.
like it's original. And the leader is Delmonda, something like that.
Yeah.
Mondo?
Delmonda.
Yeah, of the world, kind of in Spanish.
Oh,
It's kind of
interesting.
funny.
But during like the psychic attack, I was listening to that in the car, which was odd for me. I normally don't like to multitask when I'm listening to these, but I made an exception for this just because I've been so busy. But I was listening in the car, and like it was pretty trippy to hear like the alien humming get louder and louder. Then more
It's
so
eerie.
like the Delmonda and Khan stuff later, it was like it sounded like I was like driving the car into hell. It's like, what the hell am I hearing right now? But
Yeah, I felt like it was like a boss fight against some psychic alien in Mass Effect.
But Ivan has some fun lines there, and he's like alien treachery, and when he's like they may
He sounds
not
like
speak,
Conan.
but I bet they bleed or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I
he
had
sounds
a
like
little
Conan.
Yeah, I had a little bit of confusion on my first listen of kind of what was happening in the transition from when Khan and Ivan were talking to when Khan and the alien was talking, because like for a minute it almost sounded like maybe the telepath had taken over Ivan and then he was talking to Khan, but then it was like, oh no, that's like Khan himself like screaming crazy stuff. Like, it wasn't Ivan screaming crazy stuff to Khan. Like, it was Khan screaming crazy stuff to the aliens. And it was just such a weird, like, transition. And that's kind of, like, when it goes into, like, that crazy sounding stuff where they start to communicate telepathically. But I don't know. I didn't write down the lines, but there was some like weird shit that Khan was saying, like right before he started conversing with him.
I feel like I also heard at least one or two audio bits that were like from the past. You know, like somebody talking, saying something about the eels, or maybe.
It was before that. He was almost like screaming at them, like super angry.
Are you talking about when he's doing the same thing he did to the planet when he's like,
yes,
I will not fear you. You should fear me.
Yes. That section, like right before they made contact with him. But like he's like screaming at them. Like, and he just sounds possessed. Like I was having a hard time figuring out who was actually talking, because like the way that the voice like changed was so aggressive. But yeah, I liked
it's
the
a slightly
transition
dreamlike sequence. And I was trying to, I think he said something like, you know, he said he was going to show Marla, or maybe to Ivan, to tell Marla we were both wrong, and like he said something like, I'm going to show them my imagination, and I wasn't quite clear exactly what happened, other than it sounded like he was like almost overpowering them with his own ego and willpower, or at least forcing them to like pay attention to him.
Yeah, that's definitely what it was. Now that you're saying that makes more sense to me. Also,
but I don't know.
That he was
and
like,
then he must black out, right? Because then he wakes up.
He has that back and forth with Delmonda, but the chain of events is that he tells Ivan, okay, take everyone back, retreat. I'll stay here, and then he does the I'll show them my imagination thing. What I just thought he was just he was just really mad, really angry. Like he was just like, I'll show them what I can do.
Like terrifying the Telosians to go back to some very mental oriented creatures.
That kind of makes more sense. I didn't connect it to that. I was just thinking like, oh, like I can imagine like some pretty like mean ways to beat these guys up. I'm gonna really like let them have it, you know, like. I'm gonna creatively beat the shit out of them. That's how mad I am. That's kind of how I took that. But yeah, it might have been like just kind of overwhelming them with his rage and aggression. But they have that conversation with Delmonda where Delmonda explains like, okay, my ship is traveling light years and light years away, thousands of light years away from our planet. We were making some repairs in this system when this planet blew up, and that's why we crashed here. And the whole time, like, Khan is kind of short and dismissive and just like I command you to leave this planet immediately. You cannot stay here. This planet belongs to me and my people. And but the alien Delmonda, he's just kind of almost like he's like kind of amused by Khan, but he's like, oh, I guess you don't trust me. What can I do to show you I don't mean you any harm? Oh, I know. I'll give you this vision and show you exactly where you can find this water that you and your people need. And that's when it gets like the really trippy auditory experience where it sounded like I was driving the car into hell. That's when Khan blacks out and then wakes up, and the last thing you hear is like the sound of like the water drops, which to me that was a very Dune thing, like in Dune when like Paul would have dreams of the Fremen water caverns. And tell me about the waters of your home world, Usul. Like that was, oh yeah, if you're having like trippy dreams of underwater caverns on barren worlds, it's very Dune, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
I just realized I was muted. I was just going to say that, yeah, I think it makes sense. That's, caverns and water are what they most need.
Yeah. Can't have Star Trek without caves.
Yep.
That's right.
Oh,
I assumed that the caves were made of paper mache and lit with like purple and red lighting and stuff. I pray that they were.
Oh, you were picturing TOS. I was picturing this as kind of like
more movie era.
Yeah, like how they would have looked in the 80s and not the 60s. But
yeah,
I like that
sense.
more though. I want it to be the like the cave from What Are Little Girls Made Of.
Yeah, or a Horta cave, or one of those.
Yeah, well, it's the same cave probably. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that brings us to our ending, I guess. Khan wakes up in Med Bay, and now he knows where to find this water, and they go down into the cave, and it's full of 100 miles wide, I think Ivan says, and Marla recites some poetry, and Khan makes a log entry.
Yeah. I think this is where it's really important when Khan makes that log entry, because he mentions oh, I don't understand why they wouldn't just attack us. And I think that just rounds out the whole episode, of explaining why he was ready to just murder all of these aliens. He cannot fathom not doing that. He can't fathom if his ship was damaged and he crashed on a planet, getting off that ship and not wanting to destroy.
He says in their place I would have killed us, basically.
Yeah.
But Taylor, I just want to add to that him doing this log entry at the end, it's also the wraparound to the beginning of the episode when Marla is getting him in the habit. And we've heard in some earlier episodes recordings from at some point years after this, after Marla's dead, of Khan making these log entries. So we know this is something that he's going to continue to do going forward. But yeah, he explains in this log entry here about the limits of his imagination when he's I can't imagine ever being that kind and empathetic and compassionate to someone else, to arguably to someone who's an inferior specimen, someone who's less capable than I am. And those are the people that you can just squash and not have to deal with. They're easy to handle. Just get rid of them. But to actually be nice and give them something that is beyond what my superior intellect can comprehend.
I have this feeling that if no catastrophic events had happened to their colony, that there would have been problems still pretty soon. He would want some sort of expansionist sweep. He would need a new goal, or he'd find that there was civil strife within his people, and he'd, cast some of them out and end up creating an enemy. He doesn't feel like a guy who could govern for very long. But maybe a few years, I don't know.
Well, Dave, I'm hoping that by the end of this story that the takeaway from it will be that yes, it did not matter what happened to Khan, what planet he was on, what century it is, he is always going to be doomed because of his own ambitions. He's always going to bite off more than he can chew, and it's going to collapse on him, and just nothing he's ever going to do is going to be sustainable because he's his own worst enemy. He's kind of like a Macbeth or Scarface or I guess Breaking Bad Heisenberg. Yes, he's this guy who's his own appetite, his own desire to build his empire, to build his what do you call it? The Kubla Khan poem.
Xanadu. His pleasure dome.
Yeah.
I always wanted to get a pleasure dome added to the house. I'm still looking into it.
Well, good luck with that.
I'll decree it, like in the poem.
The poem a little bit made me laugh because some of the Star Trek recitement is it's a little bit much for me sometimes because I'm there's no way that these people remember this shit. And she even says I was made to memorize
No,
this.
I liked that though. I liked that because that annoys me too. That everyone who goes to Starfleet Academy, it's they've memorized all classic literature. There's gonna recite Dickens, Shakespeare, whatever. But I liked her saying well, this is a particular poem that I memorized because I don't know if that's as big of a thing in colleges now as it used to be, but I know a lot of people would I know old timers who'd be oh yeah, I had to memorize this part of this Shakespeare play that I can recite the in fact I knew this old lady who she knew what's the letter that Hamlet writes to his girlfriend in Hamlet?
Ophelia.
Yeah, but like she could recite like that whole letter because like she had to memorize that for school.
Yeah,
so-
For the
I can
record, by the
recite
way,
a lot of Romeo and Juliet for the same reason.
I have always remembered the opening to that poem about Kublai Khan. My brother and I don't know why, I used to always kind of quote that one. So it was in my head. Not the rest of the poem, but the opening.
Yeah. I thought that was like a really specific thing to bring up. Like it was like, oh, literally a character named Khan and the water and the cave and the sunlessness. Like it was a very perfect piece that I think they obviously had in mind when they were writing this.
But you know what's interesting is it does fit, like I said, like that we know from the thing that they had to go underground. It makes sense that they would need water. But yeah, I do wonder if like, the aliens showing them that, if, was this Nicholas Meyer, doing his classics degree kind of stuff. He's like, I got to reference it. I honestly do like it. There's Moby Dick, Paradise Lost. In Trek 2, there's Dickens, Tale of Two Cities. For sure they like a little bit to echoing their great literature in this. And, I suppose by episode 5, they probably earned that one.
Yeah. It does make me laugh a little bit. Like, I kind of want to know if Starfleet has, like, excerpts, or do they make them, like, memorize, like, really big chunks of things? Or if it's like, okay, here's, like, the Humanity 101 book that you have to memorize all of these quotes. And, like, they're all, like, super
it's very
specific,
much the
like...
old white men quotes.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it, though. Like, a little bit, like, in my headcanon, it's like, oh, well, pretend that you're the only person ever who can, like, represent humanity. Like, you kind of want to have, like, the most strongly worded and, like, philosophical things, like, lined up, ready to go in any of these cases, so that people are, like, in awe of, like, the humanity, or, like, oh, this is what we bring to the table kind of thing. We figured this out centuries ago, and we have art about it,
The people that Picard sometimes describe in his future, when he's like, we're not like that anymore, Q, when he does one of those moments, those are definitely the people that would be memorizing, big chunks of the greatest literature and stuff. And of course, it's something of the limitations of the writer's imagination of the 60s, 70s, 80s, that of course they're like, well, they're going to like the same literature that I do. But yeah, that's I thought that was a fun one. I actually have to make sure my brother listens to this so that he can hear that.
Any other thoughts on the episode?
Let's see. I don't think I do. That kind of covers where I am. It is interesting to introduce something so unusual as an alien race on this planet that has to be dealt with. I kind of can't quite figure what the next plot point is. I mean, do y'all see that there's an obvious thing?
I think that Khan's going to go back a little bit and get some more tech from these people, because eventually they have to be able to communicate to get off the planet, right? Like, they got to get the Reliant somehow, right?
Well, the Reliant comes to them in Wrath of Khan.
Right. But is that because they have, like, a beacon? Like, I don't
No, it was they were
just scanning.
They were looking
lifeless
for
planets.
a lifeless planet to test the Genesis device on.
Ultimately, just a coincidence.
And it's just another coincidence. Although I guess they could kind of explain maybe why people would come back to the system. That might be another thing that they use this as an opportunity to kind of explain. But
if like, say, Paulo, remember they talked about he has that scanner, his Dino scanner or whatever. Maybe they get something from the aliens that boosts the transmission. He's like, okay, we lost our shot at the aliens because Khan drove them off. But what I'm going to do is I can hack into like some Starfleet database from out here, and I'm gonna mark this. I'm gonna remove the quarantine note on this system and say that there's only 5 planets or whatever. And basically, like that's something that we're going to see happen in here. He does it hoping that at some point it'll lead somebody to come find him. He does mention
You know,
wanting, they mentioned the idea of getting off the planet here. Khan, in his ego, is like, no, he's like, I'm going to drive these aliens off, and like maybe we'll get some tech from them, but he
Does-
mainly wants them gone.
does not make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me because I'm not Khan, but like, wouldn't that just be genius to be like, hey, let's hitch a ride with these aliens who just literally seem to offer a ride off this planet to another planet that's fucking easier? And he says no. He's like, I'm just gonna keep making this planet work. Like he's like trying to
It's
fit
like
a square
the ideas
cube
have
in
to
a
come
circle.
from me. It can't be you.
Yeah, he's like forcing the cube in the circle or whatever. But you know what else I was thinking is that Paolo might leave. Like I don't think he's in the Wrath of Khan mentioned by name.
Paolo is going to leave, have a sex change, and then change his name to Dr. Lear, and then try to clear Khan's name. And that's going to be the big reveal.
Yeah, I was thinking that he
obviously.
might escape with the aliens. Like he may be like, I'm getting the fuck out of here because
That'd be
like, these
interesting.
people are crazy and they're not listening to me, even though they are in this episode. But
I don't think Paolo is going to get off world, but I think that either Marla's baby or Ursula and Meadows' baby might leave with these aliens or something. They might have like shuttlecrafts on their ship that can still fly or something like that. And maybe that's how we get to Dr. Lear.
But I guess what I'm saying is like there's no obvious plot point. Well, obviously these aliens did destroy the planet. I don't know. Maybe they did something to it, but also maybe not. If it's not them, then there's some bigger tapestry. Somebody's pulling some strings somewhere. Some mirror universe person is doing something. I don't know what. But there's still some big reveals to be had. Since the writing has generally been so strong on this, I really like to think that it's gonna like come together in some way where I'm like, oh, how very clever, and not go like, oh, they said there's a bunch of coincidences and then they didn't really fix them. I'm like, I want them to fix them.
Yeah, you want the bridge to the link.
Yeah,
like, to know every single thing and how it is connected. Yeah.
I mean, if we don't get an explanation about why did Ceti Alpha VI just so happen to blow up 6 months after Kirk left them on this planet in Space Seed, if we don't get that explanation,
we write.
It's not the fault of this audio drama because the Wrath of Khan is what set that up. Is this kind of here is a hell of a coincidence of a thing that happened, but it would be such a missed opportunity not to deal with that.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, like I said, I feel pretty certain that they've told us that they want to get to the bottom of it. It seems like I think they don't want to bring up the plot holes, arguably of Wrath of Khan, only to like say there's still plot holes. Yeah,
I don't know if it's a plot hole, but it's just I think it's just something that it's kind of fun to poke at and be like, oh, maybe Kirk was doing this on purpose just to be a big jerk. It couldn't have just been a coincidence, could it have been? And then have the reveal be like, oh, I guess it was just a coincidence, and Kirk wasn't a jerk.
They're gonna answer it. Mark my words. Khan.
I don't want to set myself up for disappointment, so
I actually have some faith in them at this point, and I think that they are setting it up. I'd be a little surprised if they didn't do it, I would be kind of disappointed. But I also these guys have shown and Gal have shown the ability to surprise me, so I'm not going to really assume anything about how it's all going to play out. Other than to say, I very much hope they kind of continue what they're doing on it and continue to kind of impress me. How they do it, that's up to them. But man, I was like, when I think about this has been so much more satisfying than say Strange New Worlds was for me this season. What I've seen of it, because I was like throughout this episode, I was like, oh man. Look at this great scene where kind of Paolo comes into his own. What a cool idea that Marla frames Khan's weakness in so concretely, his lack of imagination. There was just like kind of like one interesting scene after another, and man, it's I feel lucky.
Well, Taylor, any additional thoughts on Imagination's limit or Imagination's limits?
No, but I'm rooting for Marla more and more. Love her.
Great that they could pull that off with a '60s character who arguably had some problematic stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting to revisit when we do our backtracking retrospective on Space Seed. But that is an episode that I think it is kind of essential Trek, being that it is the introduction of Khan and it is like the prequel to one of the most popular pieces of Trek ever made, The Wrath of Khan. So a lot of people are going to want to view it, but the way that they handle some of the Marla scenes in that episode, it is embarrassing. I've had the experience of like showing it to friends and being very embarrassed of, and I say this as like someone who is, I know like all of our regulars know this, but I'm a huge TOS fanboy. It's my second favorite Star Trek show ever, and yeah, it's not fun when I have to be embarrassed by it, but. But it's also not fun when like I think it's even worse when like modern Trek is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So just want to take a moment to also compliment this audio drama on having a bit more representation than some of the live action Trek has had lately, with Strange New Worlds being the only current new Star Trek show out until we get to Starfleet Academy, and that show just like every season gets more heteronormative. It's a little disappointing to see. It's like queer erasure happening in live action Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. At a time when the broader culture is also having this kind of nasty pushback. So I'm like, come on, Trek, do not be a part of that broader culture. Look forward. Yeah. That's your thing.
Push back against the pushback.
Yeah.
You got to do like Sulu in the Excelsior in Star Trek VI when he's like, turn her into the wave. It's like you have to resist. You have to navigate. Right. You have to navigate through that like a pro helmsman, like Sulu would do.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Incidentally, this is not any requested plug or anything, but since David Mack is part of this team, and I think he's clearly doing great work, I think he's got a new Star Trek book out. I was just double checking. I know that it's a Strange New Worlds.
It is a Strange New Worlds novel,
and it's called Ring of Fire. I haven't read it. I cannot comment on it, but we had fun when we did one of his books previously. He's doing good here. He's done a lot of good Trek stuff in the past. So, if for anybody who's looking for some more of that, the sort of the Trek lit style, might be worth checking out.
Well, if that's all we got on the episode, I will transition to the Gorn Egg section of the show. This is where we like to point out some Easter eggs, end jokes, and continuity connections. Not really much in these Star Trek Khan episodes because they're mainly just pulling from Space Seed and The Wrath of Khan. So, but they did in this episode. They did mention Star Trek First Contact, like I brought up, but Marla talking about Zefram Cochrane built warp drive originally to get rich, but then it ended up, changing mankind in the Star Trek future. And the Kubla Khan poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, not Wordsworth, as Khan points out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to point. I know we talked about that previously, but Dave, you mentioned the first stanza of the poem, something that you've always remembered yourself. But the rest of the poem, it starts off with like, oh, we had this this cool, pleasant utopia land, but with this beautiful river flowing through it. But then like it turns nasty. It gets bad. The river floods. It all goes to hell basically. So a bit of foreshadowing for the future of Ceti Alpha V and its inhabitants. But I had a lot of fun talking about this episode with Taylor and Dave, and with the people watching live and commenting on YouTube. So thank you, everyone who's attending right now. And y'all heard us talk about this episode for over an hour. You know how the three of us feel about it. So please feel free to leave a comment and let us know your feelings. You can comment on YouTube and Spotify, or reply to my post on social media, or let us know in the Tex-Trek Discord server, links wherever you're watching or listening. But let us know what you thought about this episode of Star Trek Khan. I want to point out in our subspace transmissions segment that we're in, where I can share some of these responses we get from people, but I want to point out a comment we got on YouTube last week when we were talking about episode 4 of Star Trek Con, Magical Thinking. That had the funeral scene that we mentioned earlier tonight, but opinions no one cares about on YouTube said, loved the funeral scene. I grieve with you, simple and perfect. But then Opinions goes on to say, but I keep thinking, did Khan say in Wrath of Khan that one of the eels killed his wife? Because he seems to be doing well with ill control. And so I want to point out this comment to everyone from Opinions no one cares about. But yes, in the Wrath of Khan, the actual dialogue from Khan is that the Ceti Eels killed 20 of his people, including his beloved wife. And he also says not all at once. So they're gonna drop dead, but not all at once. But we know they've already killed what we've lost Richter and Sylvana, and arguably Joaquin died because of the set, because it was like the eel was like crawling up on Sylvana at the same time that the boar charged in, so you could possibly blame Joaquin's death on the Ceti eels. So we have definitely 2, possibly 3 deaths. 17 more. Marla and 16 others are also going to be killed by these things.
Well, there was a comment in either this previous episode or episode 3 that there were others that had died off screen that we didn't know their names or anything. So it's somewhere between 3 and 20 already, or 3 and 19 if you're not counting.
Oh, right. There had been a few other deaths.
Yeah. So the
Ursula had brought that up, I think, and when they were, or maybe it was Mado, but it was whenever they were talking about like the control, like the not the insecticide, but the silicate stuff.
Okay. So maybe ill control going well now, but had a few hiccups. But the other thing we know about them from Wrath of Khan is that when all the life on the surface of Ceti Alpha V starts to die off, the only indigenous life form that's going to survive are going to be these nasty ass fucking bugs. So
they're literally the roaches of Earth. Like they're.
I was thinking
the roaches will.
It's pretty messed up that he had a tank in his in what little remained in their Botany Bay colony with one of these things in it. Like it's like, oh yeah, that's the thing that killed my wife right there in a fish tank.
Yeah, now there's pets.
And this is a guy who he shouted about how he was going to kill the planet and stuff and personified it, but he keeps the eel tank.
But what's the fun thing?
What if she doesn't die of an eel thing? What if he mercy kills her or something like that, like he did Richter, and that's how he told it to his people? Another con lie, but he, his internal loathing, his hatred for Kirk is falling back on himself.
Joel in the live audience. Sorry, Taylor. I just want to point out this comment. Joel in the live audience says Khan now lives in Joe's apartment. That was also a Paramount movie, though. That was an MTV made movie, but they made the Joe's Apartment movie about a dude who lived in an apartment with a bunch of CGI cockroaches that were
strange times.
His very cartoonish pets, I guess. But
what were you saying, Taylor?
You had to be there.
Oh, I was thinking that it is still possible that Ursula is the one that lies that Marla dies by a Ceti eel.
Oh.
Like, if she's the one who helps Marla escape or something, and, like, maybe Marla and Mado go with aliens, whatever, and then Ursula tells Khan, oh, they died by eel.
Right, I burned the bodies, and remember, I have them, so they're all gone now. Yeah, I feel like there will be something... Maybe not that exactly, but I feel like we're headed towards something like that. So
it's gonna be fun. I'm so excited.
It is.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to revisit Wrath of Khan after this, and and like even now, like Dave, I just thought of this as you were talking about how, oh yeah, it is kind of crazy that this madman kept the creatures that killed his wife as his pets. But now that we've seen more or heard more of Khan on Ceti Alpha V in this audio drama, I'm thinking like, oh, it makes perfect sense that this power hungry megalomaniac dictator tyrant guy he'd have like his group of like core survivors, like these like young kids that like were able to survive the nuclear winter and still follow him on Ceti Alpha V. But just as insurance, just in case anyone gets out of line, I'm gonna have the mind control bugs nearby in case I need to use them.
Yeah, and also like he hit that tank circumscribes its whole world. He's like you're under my control now. It's like, at my will you die, and all that. He's a little pet abuser, kind of an asshole.
yeah, man, like being stranded on this planet with this genetically engineered brain and whatever kind of war trauma or whatever else he had going for it. It was not a recipe for a picture of mental health by the time we get to the events of Wrath of Khan.
Do you think sometimes he like went out into like the jungle and like just got like a rash from some plant, and he like has a big epic speech? He's like, "Rash, you will not defeat me." He's like, "I face you now."
The rash of Khan. No, he's probably like, "Kirk, damn you! This is all your fault. You cursed me to this miserable rash. You knew what you were doing, you bastard."
The rash of Khan.
Oh my god!
I didn't do that intentionally, but thanks for picking up on that, Father.
Yeah, that's not often I'm the quick one, but
it seems like that's probably a good point to wrap us up here.
I agree, but I had more fun than I thought I was going to have talking about it. Imagination's Limits. So that was a fun, juicy conversation. I'm continuing to dig Star Trek Con. Looking forward to these remaining 4 episodes. The back half. Now the post explosion half. We will be talking about episode 6 next week, and we might have some big news from New York Comic Con to comment on as well. But until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Subscribe to YouTube to watch the Tex-Trek podcast live or listen to us later on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Stephen Fothery on socials at TXTrek. Thank you and take care.